step number one to understanding what we're doing here is that this is basically just a giant computer, and all we're doing with these knobs is controlling functions of the computer. It's not the days of opening up a mixer and having these huge circuit boards with individual little pots and little, that's long gone. All right, this is a computer, which also means there's benefits and problems with that as well. That means that it can get a bug, just like a computer can get, right? Mm-hmm. It means it may throw a hissy fit, and for some random reason, something may not do what it's supposed to do. And sometimes the best answer to a problem is just to reboot the console, just like your computer. All right. Now, it's a good company. It's a good product. That does not happen very often, but it happens with all digital consoles, including $100,000 digital consoles. Right. It just happens. So just be aware. It's a computer. If there's a problem, reboot it as the first response. Okay. The other thing to understand is that this has a file system, just like a computer would have, in that you can save snapshots and scenes of a setting that you have. You know, let's just say this is your Sunday morning mix, and it was perfect. You want to have at least this good of a mix every Sunday, right? And so I want to save this as a starting point for my next Sunday. I can save a file in the console that basically saves every setting that I had, and I might name it FCOG 121524. And I'll know now that if 3 months from now I get in the weeds and I'm like, man, I wish I could get back to that setting that it sounded so great, second Sunday in December. All right, I can go right back to my list and I can pull that file back and I'll immediately be back there. Now, what that means is another great benefit of that is that means you have the ability to come into this console and experiment and try things. Lauren and Terry, don't listen. You can try things on here, and if you get off in the weeds somewhere, you can get back to safety, right? So as a learning tool, even though this can be intimidating, it is way better to be learning on a digital console than an analog console. I mean, when I came up, the board was as long as here at the end of the counter, and there was a bunch of buttons, and the only file system that you had was literally a paper chart with a row of knobs, and you marked with a pencil where every knob was. And that's how you got back to your settings from last Sunday, right? So you're in a much better position with this. So I would encourage you to look at that as a benefit of a digital console. So now this, having said that, that is something that you're going to probably do on a rehearsal night, not on a Sunday morning.
Yes.
And there's lots of other reasons or places and times that work better for that than others. All right, so you can see that we have here 32 faders, a master fader, but we already know this is a 48 channel console, so there's going to be more channels hiding somewhere, right? So we have layers here, A, B, C, D, E, and F. We actually have 6 layers. Since these faders are motorized, we can literally have 6 different layers with the faders doing different things. And when we go to these layers, it just recalls whatever's supposed to be on that layer. Now, what that means in practical terms, like this is kind of more or less a default layout. I've got my channel 1 first, and I go all the way up to channel 32. Then I go to layer B, and I pick up on channel 33, and I go all the way to channel 48. Then I have some effects returns. These are empty, nothing there. Go to the third layer. This third layer is basically all outputs, right? First 2 layers were all inputs. Third layer is all outputs. And then I've got 3 completely empty layers.
Outputs being speakers.
Could be speakers, it could be in-ear monitors for a musician, it could be audio that's going to a cry room for the nursery TV. I mean, it could be anything that's going out of the console. So you'll see what I have set up right now is I have in-ear mixes, in-ear monitor, that's what IEM stands for, 1 through 8 are showing right here. I have effects sends, we'll get to that. I have my main left right volume, matrices, we'll get to that, and then we have DCAs, we'll talk about those. All right, But in general, the default layout is first 2 layers are things coming into the console, third layer is things going out of the console, and then these bottom 3 layers are completely customizable. Now, one of the most beautiful things about this console is I can lay this console out any way that I want. And I would encourage you, if you're running sound on a regular basis, and this is your office on a Sunday, 2 Sundays out of the month or something, take the time to adopt one of these layers and make it exactly what you get to on a Sunday morning and the most, that you need at your fingertips. And lay out this layer to be exactly the stuff that you need. And the beautiful thing is it doesn't have to be inputs, outputs. It can be an input next to an output, next to the main left, right, next to this feed going to the nursery, next to what, it can be any fader can be set in place next to any other fader. So I don't have to follow the confines of all the inputs in one place, all the outputs in one place. I can put my 8 most used inputs here and then a few outputs, and then over here I can have just the vocal mics or whatever, right? So use those bottom 3 layers as custom layers that you can make your job easy. Because the last thing you want to do is be toggling back and forth 14 times, during one song on a Sunday morning, trying to keep track of what's going on multiple layers. It's so easy for there to be a problem on another layer that you don't see.
Yeah.
And you're up here on layer 1 doing something, and you're not aware that one of your other channels is distorting or peaking out, or it got muted accidentally, or whatever, right?